How's it going? Ryan here at etrailer.com. Today on our 2020 Subaru Forester, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the EcoHitch hidden trailer hitch receiver. Now the main thing that separates this hitch from some of the others is that it's going to be completely hidden. The only thing you're going to be able to see is the receiver tube opening and your safety chain plates. Now in my opinion, that's a big advantage because you're going to be able to maintain that factory look. And you're not going to have to sacrifice the usability. It's going to give us really good clearance, especially for those folding accessories, because the end of the receiver tube opening is going to sit pretty much flush with the edge of our bumper. Many of our Subaru customers rely on their Forester to take them on their adventures, and that can really put a lot of wear and tear on things. That's one thing I really like about this hitch, is it's going to have a really rough finish, which is going to stay looking good for a long time. And it's going to be really well constructed. Everything's just going to be put together really nicely. That way you know this will last as long as your Subaru. And not to mention, the whole hitch itself is made from recycled materials. It's going to have a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening and a reinforced collar for extra strength. Now it's going to have the standard 5/8 size pinholes. Now keep in mind, a pin and clip does not come included. But if you need one, you can find it here at eTrailer. It's going to have those plate-style safety chain openings, which are going to give us enough room. And since they're positioned a little bit past our hitch pin, we're not really going to have to worry about too much interference. And with that being said, we should be able to use just about any size hook that we might have. And since it is a Class 3 hitch, we are going to have some pretty decent weight capacities. As far as the maximum gross tongue weight rating goes, it's going to be 350 pounds. So that's going to be the amount of weight pushing down on the hitch. So that's perfect for those 1 to 4 bike racks and many different types of cargo carriers. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, it's going to be 3,500 pounds. So that's going to be the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. So that's the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have on it. Now, I do always like to recommend it's never a bad idea to check with your Forester's owner's manual to make sure you can pull out much weight. Now I'm going to give you a couple of measurements, and you're going to use these to help figure out which hitch-mounted accessories to get. From the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, it's going to be about 15 inches. And you're going to use that measurement to figure out if you need to get a ball mount with either a drop or a rise. From the center of the hitch pinhole to the edge of a rear bumper, that's going to be about 3 inches. And you're going to use that measurement to figure out if any folding accessories that you might have can be stored in the upright position without contacting the bumper. So overall, really versatile hitch. It's going to provide us with a really clean, more factory look. And it's going to allow us to use our various accessories or even pull the trailer whenever we're out enjoying ourselves. Now the installation is a little bit involved and it'll take you a little bit of time, but for the most part, it's nothing super complicated and relatively straightforward. And I'll walk you through how I did it. And in my opinion, the end result is totally worth it. So let's go ahead and put the hitch on together now. Now since our hitch sits behind our bumper cover, we are going to have to remove it, but it's really not as bad as it sounds. A handful of fasteners and a few clips and we'll be able to get it right off. So what we're going to do is first open up our hatch. That way we can access our tail lights and get to a couple of fasteners. So if you come right here, we're going to have 2 plastic fasteners, and these are actually going to have a Phillips head screw in the middle. And the trick is with these is to just very lightly put that screwdriver in. You don't really want to put any pressure on it, and turn it to the left and get the head of that to kind of pop out. Then you can just grab it and pull it out. Now if the whole thing starts spinning on you, what you can do is just kind of take your finger and hold the edge of it, keep it still, and you're able to pop it out. From there, we have this plastic cover that we're going to take off. If it doesn't want to come right off along this edge, there's a couple of clips. So what you can kind of do is take a flathead, kind of carefully just help guide it out. You can set that off to the side. Now with that out of the way, we're able to see our electrical connector. And so we're going to disconnect that by pushing down on the center tab and separating it from the other end of the connector. Now to get our tail light out, and that'll give us the ability to more easily take our bumper cover off, we're going to have two 10mm bolts that we'll remove. And from there you can grab your tail light and work it towards you and set it off to the side. Now the other side of the car is set up the exact same way, so we're just going to repeat that process over there. Now over in our rear wheel wells, we're going to have another plastic fastener that we'll take out here right at the top edge where our bumper meets the quarter panel. And the way these work, you just take a small screwdriver and you're actually going to push in the center of the fastener. So it'll kind of clip in like that. Then you can just take the head of your screwdriver and just kind of pry it out. Now in our particular Subaru, it's not equipped with mud flaps. However, if yours does have mud flaps, what you'd simply do is just remove those fasteners along this edge here, holding those in place. Again, the other side set up the same way, so we'll just go ahead over there and get that fastener removed as well. Now here underneath the back of our car, along the edge of our bumper cover, we're going to have 7 plastic push-pin fasteners that run along that edge that we need to take out. And the way these work, grab a trim panel tool or a flathead screwdriver, pry underneath the head, then you're able to work that fastener completely out. So I use that same technique to get all the remaining fasteners that are running along the edge of our bumper cover. Now before we take our bumper cover off, what I did was just take some painter's tape and on each side, just right above it on our quarter panel, just stuck that to our vehicle. That way we don't have to worry about accidentally scratching our paint. Now with an extra set of hands, we're going to start removing our fascia. And so we go from the wheel well and work our way towards the center. So to do that, you're going to grab it and just kind of pull outward. And that's going to release those clips. Kind of work our way over to where the taillight area is. And you just give it a swift pull towards the center, and it should come right off like this. Now in our case, we don't have any wiring back here, nothing like that. But whenever you take yours off, it's a good idea not to just pull it so far back right away. That way you can kind of look down and check and make sure there's no connectors that you might have to undo. But with that being said, now we can walk this off and put it somewhere safe so it doesn't get damaged. Now we can go ahead and take off our bumper beam. So it's going to be held in place with 3 fasteners on each side. We're going to have a nut right here, a bolt right here, as well as another bolt on this side. So what we're going to do is take a 14mm socket and run that through these access holes, and then just get those removed. Now one thing that I like to do on this bottom bolt, since it's the easiest to get to, is actually take it out and then just thread it in a couple turns by hand. That way when we remove the other side of the bumper beam bolts, we're not going to have to worry about it falling. We'll just have a little more control. So I've got all 3 fasteners removed on this side. I can kind of support the bumper beam, come back over and take out this one I had in by hand, slide it off, and just set it to the side. Now back underneath the Subaru, what we're going to have to do is lower our exhaust a little bit to give us some more room for our hardware here in a moment. But before we do lower it, I like to take a strap and just kind of run it from side to side, and that'll just kind of help support our exhaust a little bit. So we're going to have 2 rubber isolator hangers, one on each side of the muffler that we're going to need to remove. And so to do that, you want to spray them down with some soapy water or some penetrating oil, make it a little easier. Then you can just take a pry bar and work that hanger off like that, and then kind of just fold it down out of the way. Now that'll give us access to the 4 bolts that's holding our heat shield up. Now we're going to need to lower that heat shield, so we'll go ahead and use our 10mm socket to get all 4 of those removed. And once you run that last bolt out, we're able to lower the heat shield and kind of sneak it out from underneath our car. Now on each side of our frame rail, we're going to have some rubber plugs, and we're going to need to take one out. And it's going to be this one here. So from the back of the vehicle, working towards the front, it'll be the second plug. We'll get them out. Let's take a flathead, get underneath it, and pop it out. So before we put our hitch in place, I'd just like to explain how it's going to work a little bit. We're going to have 3 holes here on this flat portion, and what we're going to do, these are actually going to line up with the bolt holes that we're holding our bumper beam on. Now this part, this channel, that's actually going to go inside of the frame rail, and this hole here at the back, that's actually going to line up with that hole in the frame rail from that rubber plug that we just removed out of it. And it's never a bad idea to clean out our threaded attachment points here. So I just sprayed a little penetrating oil in them. I'm going to use a toothbrush to just get any potential dirt or debris that may be inside. And what I like to do is just kind of take one of our bolts and run it in by hand to make sure it goes in nice and smooth. So now we're going to go ahead and grab our hitch and work it in and up flush against the body of our vehicle here. What we're going to do is take a bolt, a split lock washer, followed by a flat washer. Once we have the hitch up, we're going to run those in, and that's what's going to secure those 2 spots. For the stud, what we're going to do is take a flat washer, split lock washer, and the nut, and that's what's going to hold that attachment point. Now we are going to have a piece of hardware that we're going to have to put inside of our frame rail that we talked about earlier, and how we're going to get it in there is called the fish wire technique. So that rubber plug that we took out of the frame rail, what we're going to do is take the coiled end here and run it up through there, and we're going to try to get this coiled end to come out of this opening right here in the hitch. We'll feed it through and then work it towards that opening in our hitch. So what we're going to put over our coiled end first is a larger flat washer, a star washer. We're going to take one of our larger bolts and thread that bolt onto the coiled end of our fish wire. Now we're just going to kind of individually feed that hardware in through the opening. And if we grab the other end of our pull wire and work it down, we'll be able to get our bolt to drop through that hole. Then we can unthread the fish wire. Once our bolts are dropped through the frame rail, we can come back and secure them. So we're going to take this plate style washer, slide that on, and it helps if you kind of grab that washer and put some upward and sideways pressure to help keep that bolt steady. Followed by a split lock washer and a nut. So we'll just run these up hand tight for now. And repeat that exact same process over on the other side. Now we can start to tighten down all of our 3 bolts here on the outside body of our vehicle. We can come down underneath and tighten up the bolts that run through our frame. Now we can use a torque wrench to tighten all of our hardware down to the amount specified in the instructions. Now we are going to have to trim up a little bit of our heat shield to make room for that bolt that dropped down through our frame. And so on the heat shield, there's going to be a little raised section right here with an M on it, and that's the little area that you want to cut out. So I'm just going to use a pair of 10 snips to remove that material. Now with the heat shield cut, it'll give us plenty of clearance to cut around our bolt, and then we can just reinstall it using our factory hardware that we took out earlier. Now we can go ahead and re-raise our exhaust back into position. So we'll just kind of use our hand to line it up and push our hanger on. So here on the bottom side of our fascia, we are going to have to trim a little bit of it to create an opening for our hitch to fit through. Now there's a diagram and instructions. It gives you a few measurements, and I just went ahead and followed those and drew out the area I'm going to cut. It's kind of like a T almost. We'll go up, over, up and over again, and so on. Now I'm going to use a Dremel tool to get this cut out, but it is relatively thin plastic, so you might be able to use a utility knife or a pair of snips even. Once we have that piece removed, we can kind of come back and just clean up these edges a little bit. Now, something I want to point out, just to avoid any potential confusion, is I actually made another opening right here, and that's because our customer has trailer wiring that they chose to permanently mount on the hitch. And so there were some brackets that I had to drop down from our hitch, and I had to cut out this small opening just for them to clear. That way our wiring could be easily accessed. And here's what our bracketry looks like. And what I did was I used a long no-drill bracket and then connected a short no-drill bracket to it. And then down here at the bottom, I used a 4-pole flat bracket. And all of these can be found here at etrailer.com. Now we can go ahead and reattach our rear bumper. We'll carefully line it up. Make sure we clear our hitch and bracketry. So the sides, you just push until they're secured and fasten back on. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the EcoHitch Hidden Trailer Hitch Receiver on our 2020 Subaru Forester.